They realized they really do want the book. So we really took that into account this time, and we made sure we kept a lot of the iconic scenes. We filmed the same amount of sex scenes, we don't have to cut them. So it seems way more intense. And if we bring in COVID into the story, then we have to bring in politics into the story, and we have to bring all of this other stuff in. So I think for after, we would probably keep it more of an escapism to where you can kind of forget.
Hi. Nice to meet you, and thank you for your time. Judging by the trailer and according to what you said in the past, the second chapter of the saga is much more faithful to the book than the first one was. Can you confirm it?
Yes, definitely. The first one was just kind of that classic case of people in charge not really knowing. And then they realized after the kind of backlash from the fans that they really do want the book. They aren't interested in this new version of After. They want their After and the thing that they love. So we really took that into account this time, and we made sure we kept a lot of the iconic scenes that they wanted. I think even from looking at the materials that we've posted, like the stills and the little sneak peeks, you can tell that those are directly from the book. There's always going to be changes, of course. Otherwise, the movie wouldn't really make any sense if we just put it straight up to the movie. But we did try, and we did succeed in making it a lot closer to the book than the first film.
Okay, something I noticed, and many fans too, is about the character of Zed, that in this film I think is less relevant than Trevor, despite from the book. Why did you choose to make this change about the screenwrite?
So this was a big discussion, kind of even in the first film. I spent a lot of time trying to push Zed to be more in the story, and no one really listened to me. So the second movie, we tried to course correct a little bit. But I mean, to be honest, even if it made the fans happy, it doesn't really make sense in the movie because Tessa and Zed don't really have any interaction. The scene that we filmed of them got deleted from the movie anyways. So it wouldn't really make sense for Tessa to all of a sudden go with somebody just like Hardin, in that friend group. She doesn't have the same relationship with Steph as she does in the books. Like, it was just, the first one was a little too off course for us to put Zed back in. So we decided to kind of combine Trevor and Zed. The storylines are different and stuff, obviously, and it didn't really make sense knowing that Tessa was starting this new internship. She's wanting to move to Seattle. All these things are happening. Unfortunately, and I love the actor who plays Zed, and I love Zed as a character. And I know a lot of the fans I think that will be something that we hear a lot after the second movie, is that they miss Zed.
It's in the line with the story, I imagine.
Yeah.
Yes. According to many fans' opinion, the relation between Tessa and Harding is something like toxic, something like with no future. Do you agree with that interpretation, with that point of view?
I mean, yes and no. I agree that they have a very dysfunctional relationship. I mean, that's the whole plot of the story, is these two people that keep making mistakes and keep going through this cycle. I think I would say for everyone, if you have that opinion, it's my job to write it, and everybody can interpret it differently. But most of the time, the more like negative opinions come from people who haven't actually read the books, which can be frustrating because there is a period of an actual, literally, I wrote it into the story where they talk about how toxic their relationship is and how bad it is for both of them. And he goes to therapy and they move to different states. And it's like, I strongly disagree with this notion of glamorizing things. When you write something, it doesn't mean that you're approving of it or glamorizing it. You're just telling a story. But I would rather create something that people, that creates controversy and has people having conversations than if I wrote a book. If After would have been Hardin meets Tessa, he changes everything immediately, which is so unrealistic, nobody would care about it. So I'd rather evoke intense emotions on both ends of the spectrum than just have it be a perfect love story where nobody makes mistakes, because that's not the way I want to tell stories.
The sequel looks more open about the sex aspect, more hot. Can you tell me why in the first movie you set a limit on this aspect?
Well, the U.S. distributor made us make a PG-13 movie, but there was cinematography-wise, there was a certain look we were going for and a certain softness. We actually filmed a lot more sex scenes and, more intimate scenes than were shown in the movie. The first one, we had to cut a lot down because of the rating. And the second one, we filmed the same amount of sex scenes. We don't have to cut them. So it seems way more intense, and that was on purpose because that is the book. The relationship, a lot of their problems they fix by having sex, which doesn't fix the problem, but it's a part of their cycle. So their physical relationship is very important. It's not, if you take that aspect out of it, it's like half of a story. So for me, I fought pretty hard to make sure that the next one would be rated R, not only for sex scenes, but just to show a more intimate, real version of these people.
It's just the natural evolution of a relationship.
Yes, exactly. It does a disservice to young people and older people, but especially young generations if we're making sex like this shameful, secretive thing for young girls when in reality it's a natural part of life and they shouldn't feel shame. They should feel empowered and they should feel curious, and it's okay to be curious.
A movie is the fruit of a co-working team. As the author of the book, is there anything you thought was indispensable and had been obliged to cut off the film?
Not necessarily for the second one, but there is a scene that I had a very different opinion for the ice skating scene of what it should be. And it was it was really one of the only times that we really creatively butt heads, because in my head it was just so different. But again, it is a collaboration, and I have only made 2 movies, so my answer is not always the best answer. But for that scene, it was one of those things where it is very different from the book, so I was like pushed really hard. But at the end of the day, it's just one scene in the movie, so the director kind of did his thing for that scene, and we'll see how the fans react. But that's probably the only one that I really was more like upset about.
I want to ask you something about your story. Your success arrived when you were very young, thanks to a social platform. And I think this dispels many prejudice about the idea that books are something related to the past. Do you feel that you can be a source of inspiration for the people who love writing?
I hope so, yeah. I mean, even my own readers I know hundreds of them that have written something now, and I get emails from random people saying, even if they're not a big fan of me, just my story and how they realize that publishing has a lot of closed doors, and I'm trying to kick those doors down, not only for me, but for other people. So I hope that I not only change the prejudice of books being a thing in the past, but also who can write books, because I don't care if you're a 15-year-old girl sitting in Cuba on your laptop writing a book, you're still a writer. It doesn't mean you're any less than a writer than a 45-year-old man with a master's degree in creative writing. It's writers are writers, and singers are singers, and artists are artists, and all of these lines that the past has created and all these doors just need to be taken off the hinges.
Last question. The books and movie predate the COVID. Are you thinking of adapting the story by adding this new element to avoid the risk of telling a world that no longer exists?
I don't think we'll have the characters because of the time that it kind of is written in. It's pre all of this. And if we bring in COVID into the story, then we have to bring in politics into the story, and we have to bring all of this other stuff in. So I think for after, we would probably keep it more of an escapism to where you can kind of forget for, an hour and a half what's happening. But I know for my future books I'm working on, I've but I feel like it makes more sense to add COVID into it. And, the world is completely different than it was, 7 months ago. So
last thing about the third chapter. What can you tell me about that?
I can't really tell you anything, but I can say that the more people that support the movies and the more, buzz around it, the better for all of us. But just stay tuned and see what we're up to.
Trevor represents something that is very different from Harden. Tessa starts to kind of be included in his own mind, unknowingly getting between Tessa and Harden in that way.
This now, she has come more of age and she's starting an internship and she's sort of moving on with her life. And the second film is really about their relationship.
I think it's one of those kind of like very emotional times. You've got to get out of it. Harden definitely runs towards it. I think it's bettered him. I think it's made him realise who he is and what he wants.
Hi guys, it's Andrea Barrella from Italy for Fanpageit. The first obvious thing about After 2 is the presence of a new entry, Dylan. This is why I would like to ask Josephine and Hero to tell me about your first impressions work with him. Politically correct is allowed, but not necessary.
I was lucky enough to have met Dylan briefly beforehand, so we did actually manage to get to know each other a bit before working on the movie. But I remember the first day we were both on set together. Dylan was doing a scene that's basically just him. There were a couple of lines that he could have changed out, and I think it was about 20 minutes of just him. It was just hilarious. Like every single take was just like, felt like it had been written by like a stand-up comic and was just delivered. Like I really hope like the end credits is just that whole 20-minute running. I need to watch that again. It's hilarious. So yeah, instantly super impressed and excited.
Dylan, you're lucky. That's a positive review. And what about Josephine?
I think my first impression was, oh, you're stylish because you're wearing a shirt and jeans. And I think it was probably, I don't know.
I've never heard stylish before, so that's...
Look, I think the shirt was a tiny bit tucked in, intentional or not intentional. I was like, I think just, you know, that he's a really focused actor and a very genuine person, and that's always so wonderful to get to work with that.
Oh, these were both very nice. I'm thankful.
Really nice people.
That's not bad. Okay, Dylan, you're the new character and probably the most different one from the original book. And you help to blow up Tessa's balance and unleash the crisis. Basically, you're the bad guy. Do you agree with that definition? How do you feel in that role?
I mean, I don't know necessarily about bad guy. I don't think anyone in this series is necessarily good or bad. I think there's a lot of moral gray matter in there. But he's certainly a complication to the dynamic, right? But I think that what Trevor thinks he is doing is good. And he represents something that is very different from Harden. He's very work-minded. He's looking to better himself, to better his life, and become better for his friends and family. And I think at some point or another, Tessa starts to kind of be included in his own mind with that, and he's unknowingly getting between Tessa and Harden in that way.
Josephine, in the first chapter of the saga, Tessa is a girl who becomes a woman. What should we expect from her in the second movie?
I think you can expect a woman trying to figure out a relationship. Yeah, the first film is really about, I mean, for me, part of it's about growth and development and that coming of age story. And then this now, she has come more of age and she's starting an internship and she's sort of moving on with her life, and the second film is really about their relationship and everything that entails.
Hero, this is for you. At the beginning of the second book, Adin shows that the fear of losing Tessa has brought down all his certainties, showing him as a vulnerable boy. Has this evolution moved Adin away or closer to the person you are really in your life?
I don't know. I think it's one of those kind of like, you know, very emotional times in his life, as it would be for anyone, and it's just one of those things where time, you got to get out of it. Whether you run towards or away from it, I guess, is depends on the person. Harden definitely runs towards it, so I think it's bettered him. I think it's made him realize who he is and what he wants.
Next question is for Dylan and Hero. From this movie, both of you inevitably come out as a sex symbols. Do you see yourself in this definition? Dylan?
I don't see myself in it at all, no. I'm flattered, I'm honoured. It's not what I set out to be, but if people, you know, it is what it is. So yeah, I'm flattered. That's very kind of them to think so.
Okay.
I mean, I certainly see, like, I get it. Hero, you're a sexy guy. See, I don't see it with me at all. Like, I've always understood that even with my girlfriend in real life, Barbara, like, people are like, oh, if he can do it, anyone can do it. Like, I'm the common guy like people relate to. They're like, I give people hope. I don't think I'm much of a sex symbol.
I want to propose you a sort of synthesis exercise, okay? I didn't see After Two, and I need to convince my mother to come with me at cinema to see it. So you have 20 seconds for each one to convince my mother to come with me to the cinema.
It's a really family-friendly sort of film that you can watch with, any member of the family, your mum, your dad, your niece, your nephew, your grandma, your grandpa. 20 seconds. I can keep going. Your daughter. I really think you can just bring anyone you want to the film. And
okay, that's good advertising. Hero.
Dylan and Joe are in it. I'm done. I don't need 20 seconds. What more reason do you need?
Okay, Dylan, it's up to you.
Hey, mommy, this movie is hot, hot, hot. You want to go see this movie with me, your son?
Okay, no, sorry. You can call her Rosaria. Her name is Rosaria. So I know you're Italian. So can you repeat with Rosaria?
Hey, Rosalia, this movie is hot, hot, hot. Why don't we get some buttered popcorn with me, your son, and watch this movie about teen romance?
I think she's gonna appreciate. I come back to the keyword sex, because I think an inevitable aspect is that, judging from the trailer, there seems to be many more sex scenes in the movie than the previous. So did this make you uncomfortable? And I talk to all of you.
No, because I think, that stuff, it's really professional and it's super choreographed, and I think we're lucky that we've already worked together before, and it was a lot of the same crew, and so I think it was probably, if anything, easier doing it the second time around, just because we were so familiar with all the
Yeah. I think everything gets easier the more you do it. So everything the second time around was a lot easier. But I don't think it was ever really a challenge. We always went about it a straightforward, professional way, just like any other scene. So no, I don't think it is any different from any other scene, really.
I actually was kind of. Without spoilers, I didn't have obviously nearly as much as they did. Outside of all that, I think everyone on the set is very professional. And I think when you're doing it in a professional setting like that, it should never be awkward.
Guys, last question. Your movie will be released in theaters after months of forced closure. Are you frightened by the idea that your work and the whole sector of cinema may change completely in the coming years due to COVID effect?
I think we're all very lucky to be where we are in the industry we are. And I think there's so many people who are struggling during this time. And
I mean, I think like TVs and home systems are getting better, which is the one other side to it. But it is definitely, sad that you won't have that go to the movies thing as much anymore. But yeah, it is what it is. I think so many industries are affected by it massively. We all just got, it's not the end of the world.
I think everyone, like Hiro said, everyone is kind of reeling from this. I don't think cinemas and movies are alone, obviously. I don't think that it'll necessarily hurt the viewership of the film, because everyone mostly watches from home anyway nowadays. That being said, there is obviously such an experience in the theaters, and I just hope for the best with film and cinema in general to recover from this. I think that it will. It's kind of a timeless thing, and I'm optimistic.